Yes, the kind of the decision you make to put her into the home, and how you come to that decision and the problem of getting there.
Yes, because
with the healthcare services and so on.
Yes, well, it took us the whole 2 years that we lived with Nancy to convince the local social work people that she was ill, for a start, because every time they came round she was incredibly nice and charming to them. And Maurice didn't help because he was in Alzheimer's denial, so he'd say, she's absolutely fine, there's no problem. But I came across a lot, something I didn't expect to come across, which was a kind of collusion between the medical professionals. And I found this on the internet a lot as well, in forums. There's a lot of dementia writing and dementia support on the internet, and in America especially there's a lot. And there were stories, one after another, of people who'd heard from doctors, you can't put your mother into a care home, it's a form of abuse. And that's a bit how we thought of it as well, I think, secretly deep down. We were ashamed at the idea of putting her into a care home, dumping. So that's something I talk about a lot in the book.
I suppose the thing is, you probably never want to do to somebody something that you would not want them to do.
No, because
and it's hard to imagine that you would ever want to be in a care home.
When we took it on, I made the mistake of thinking that looking after Nancy was going to be like motherhood, that she would be almost another child of mine.
But they develop, don't they?
But
you get a lot of rewards from children.
That doesn't work that way, because children grow and blossom. And Nancy was on a journey into the dark, and every day she was losing her faculties. And one of those faculties was caring about other people. She lost her empathy and her imagination and her moral compass completely. So I made this big mistake thinking that, you know, we could take her into the family and it would be fine. I really naively thought that. I thought love would be enough. I really did.
Can I just
And it's not.
Should we have questions at the end? Thank you.
Sorry.
Anyway, the point is, to get to the point is that thinking love would be enough was the mistake. Because there comes a point, and a lot of people don't recognise when they've got to the point, and they keep going, and you shouldn't. There comes a point at which someone with dementia is better off out of the family, for their sake. Completely taking all questions of caring, love, guilt, familiarity. You know, we went to visit the care home, and though it's a perfectly good care home, it's actually a really good one for dementia. It has a sort of hospital look to it. You know, there are easy clean surfaces. There are Eastern European workers with easy clean aprons. There's a slightly institutional feel, but Nancy is happy there, happier than she would ever have been with us, because she can live in her own world. And she's now passed out of, I always use the metaphor of going through the looking glass, like Alice. She's passed out of our reality, she's in her own, and no one challenges her at the care home. All they give her is support. When she lived with us, her husband was constantly reminding her of everything she was wrong about. He couldn't help it. Every day I'd say to him, Maurice, please don't tell her that she's 83 anymore, because she can't take it. She thought she was 30. And unmarried and had her whole life ahead of her and was constantly saying, I'm late for the office, I have to go. Which is difficult at 3 in the morning. You know, she's got 8 pairs of trousers on and is charging for the door. But now she doesn't have any of that. She isn't challenged, and she lives in permanent, fairly contented amnesia, and is supported physically in that, and is basically left to, you know, be a terror, which she is at the care home. Wanders into people's rooms and takes things and steals their lunch and things like that. But they're lovely to her.
You had great difficulty kind of getting to that stage, didn't you? I mean, there's amazing facts. There are 820,000 people in Britain with dementia. 2/3 of them are women. And as you probably know, the figure's rising. And for British citizens reaching 65 this year, the risk of developing dementia is 1 in 3.
Correct.
So the question is how, I mean, it was debated during the election, but it hasn't been addressed yet.
No.
If you were to be asked, what would you advise the government on what?
I don't think they're going to ask me, because they're not going to like the answer. The answer is very expensive, because here's the thing. The key thing is a cultural change we need, because at the moment, well, there's lots of things to say about this, because it's a real bugbear of mine, but I'll try and be coherent. at the moment, people who have dementia are called social care clients, and they're charged. And it's costing about £25,000 for my mother-in-law a year to be in care, which means that for their whole lives, my Presbyterian, incredibly frugal in-laws, who live with the old lino and the double twin, whatever it's called, open washing machine, and never went on holiday unless it was in a caravan, and grew their own vegetables, to put money aside for their children. I'm sorry, it just makes me so upset. All that money was taken from them because she's ill, and it's just a scandal. Anyway.
It took a long time for the health service in the area to even sort of accept how ill she was.
Yes, because she has this bluffers thing that people with dementia often have, of being incredibly charming to healthcare workers when they come round and asking how they are. They say, Nancy, how are you today? Oh, I mustn't grumble. Well, I could grumble, but I won't. And how are you? You look very tired. And they look at me as if to say, what problem? She's obviously the sweetest old lady in the world. They'd leave her 5 minutes later, she'd be attacking her grandson with a coal shovel.
But then finally the doctor came with a test.
The MMSE, yes. Yes, the MMSE where you are scored out of 30, and she got 2 right. And he said, well, that's just astonishing. How did she get this far down the line without anyone really recognising it? We've been telling you for 2 years. So took her off all the drugs, she's off the drugs. But yes, getting back, I'm going back a bit.
To the politics.
To the politics. What were we talking about? Oh yes, the end of life thing.
Yes, how you kind of kindergarten for the elderly.
Thank you, yes. Yes, bugbear number 2 is the one where we're so attentive, we're so youth-oriented now in our culture. We're so attentive to pregnancy, childbirth, antenatal care, postnatal care, kindergarten, schools. No one ever says we can't afford these things. But, trying to get proper housing and care for people over 70 or over 80, even if they don't have dementia, is incredibly hard. But if they have dementia, you'll find a lot of homes just won't take people because they're too hard work and they're too disruptive. And what we need is to spend a huge, phenomenal amount of money. I mean, the chasm is so wide and it's stuffed with £1 million notes, frankly, between where we are and what we need to get to. And we need a proper system, almost like boarding schools, of housing arrangements in every part of Britain where people can move, a bit like the sort of Florida system of, stimulating retirement care, with a dementia aspect to it, so that they can get art therapy and they can get music therapy and they can do what they can do, and not just be sitting in a chair in front of a television all day, which is what happens at most care homes. A little light-hearted collage might go on and a game of cards, but that's the most you can hope for, really. So yes, vast amounts of money, sadly, and that's why Dave and Nick are never going to ask me. Ever.